Talks, it's what you think. Coming to find out what you think. You'll be reading from the Wall Street Journal today. Article written by Somerset. Hamas leaves Gaza talks with no ceasefire deal. Cairo. Hamas said it was pausing its participation in talks aimed at securing a ceasefire in Gaza after its leader in the enclave emerged from days of silence to deliver a hardened negotiating position amid signs of increased tension between Israel and the U.S.
Yahya Sinwar, who had been largely disengaged from the talks until recently, is demanding that Israel commit to discuss a permanent stop in the fighting, putting him at odds with other Hamas officials, according to officials familiar with the discussions. Egyptian officials say Sinwar believes Hamas currently has the upper hand in negotiations, citing internal political divisions within Israel, including cracks in Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's hold on power and mounting U.S. pressure on Israel to do more to alleviate the suffering of Gazans.
Those tensions have been on display in recent days, including a speech from U.S. Vice President Kamala Harris on Sunday calling on both sides to agree to an immediate 6-week ceasefire, delivering one of the sharpest rebukes of Israel so far from the administration. U.S. and Arab officials for weeks have sought to strike a deal between Israel and Hamas to reach an agreement for a 6-week truce ahead of the start of the Islamic holy month of Ramadan around Sunday. Arab and Israeli officials fear that Sinwar is deliberately undermining the talks in the hope that Ramadan will galvanize popular Arab support for Hamas, leading to an escalation of tensions in the West Bank and Jerusalem.
The setback dashed hopes for an imminent end to the fighting that would ease political tension across the Middle East and allow international aid organizations and Israel to deliver badly needed aid across the Strip, amid widespread hunger and deprivation. Over a dozen children have died recently due to severe malnutrition and dehydration in northern Gaza, which has largely been cut off from aid for over a month. Around 30,000 residents of the enclave have been killed in Israel's invasion, most of them women and children, according to Palestinian health authorities, whose numbers don't otherwise distinguish between militants and civilians. The remaining Hamas officials who were in Cairo for the negotiations left on Thursday, and it is unclear whether they would return, Egyptian officials said. The group may return to Cairo on Sunday for more talks, they said.
Hamas on Thursday said its delegation was leaving Cairo to consult with the movement's leadership. It added that negotiations would continue aimed at achieving the movement's key goals, an end to the fighting, securing more humanitarian aid and allowing displaced Gazans to return to their homes. Israel has said that a collapse in talks would prompt it to move ahead with a military operation against Rafah, seen as the last major Hamas stronghold in Gaza and where more than 1 million Palestinians are sheltering. The Israeli military will continue to operate against all the Hamas battalions across the entire Strip, and this includes Rafah, the last stronghold of Hamas. Those telling us not to operate in Rafah are telling us to lose the war, and that won't happen, said Netanyahu on Thursday.
The U.S. has warned against such a move without a plan to limit civilian harm as the death toll from the war soars. Despite the threats, analysts say Israel isn't yet prepared to move on Rafah because of a lack of troops and the need to evacuate civilians. Israel has said its priority in the talks is to secure the release of dozens of hostages captured during the October 7th attacks and still held in Gaza by Hamas and other Islamist groups. Over 100 hostages were released during a week-long truce in November. Around 130 remain captive, including more than 30 that Israel says are dead. Sinwar's demands have put him at odds with Ismail Haniyeh, the head of the group's Qatar-based political bureau, which has been leading talks with Qatari and Egyptian officials. Haniyeh has been willing to accept a 6-week pause in the fighting to offer some relief to Gaza's 2.3 million people, while using that time to explore the possibility of a permanent ceasefire and full Israeli military withdrawal.
Other sticking points remain, too. Hamas hasn't said how many hostages are still alive. Israel won't accept Hamas' demand to allow all Palestinians displaced in the south to freely return to the north. Israel doesn't want to allow fighting-age men to be allowed to move freely. Hamas is demanding whole families to be allowed to go back.
The Biden administration, under electoral pressure over the scale of humanitarian suffering in Gaza, threw its weight behind the talks, hoping to secure a pause in fighting to make it easier to inject more humanitarian aid. The UN and aid groups mostly stopped delivering food and other aid to the north in early February after an aid convoy was hit by Israeli fire. Widespread lawlessness and looting fueled by the desperation of northern Gazans have thwarted attempts to resume deliveries. Israel, facing intense international pressure, has in recent weeks taken a more direct role in aid distribution following the UN's pullback. Ensuring food and other vital goods reach North Gaza in particular could also help rekindle the ceasefire talks with Hamas, which has made the issue a top negotiating priority.
Israel is considering opening a new crossing to allow aid directly into northern Gaza, according to Israeli officials. While Israel wouldn't be providing the aid, the Israeli military would be responsible for securing it, said one official, adding that the crossing could open as soon as Friday. Israel is looking into what routes a possible aid convoy could take and how to prevent Hamas from taking the aid, another official said.
The Israeli government is also exploring the possibility of helping establish a sea route that would bring aid from Cyprus to Gaza. Israel's security cabinet is expected to discuss the topic later Thursday, an Israeli official said.
Okay folks, tell me what you think. Should Israel accept Hamas demands and allow all Palestinians displaced in the south to freely return back to their homes? Is the pressure on Joe Biden to push Israel to end this war working? Let me know what you think folks. Put it in the comments. And as always, stay prayed up, stay blessed, and keep pushing forward. Shalom.